Hello and welcome to The Night Feed. I'm your host, Charlotte, here to bring you some comfort, camaraderie, and conversation and keep you company during, let's face it, one of the toughest parts of being a new parent, The Night Feed. Tonight's unpaid sponsor is Coughing Your Baby Awake All Night Long. Oh my lord, to say that last night was a tough night is an understatement. You know, as a new parent, when you have one of those nights, and it is just tough and you have to roll with it. It was one of them, and you can hear in my voice. The household has come down with a cold and a cough, and hence every time I fed my baby last night, lay him back down, went to lie next to him, I did this almighty cough, which I'm actually suppressing right now. You'll be able to hear in my voice, and woke him. And this cycle repeated the entire night. And my thermometer ring, which I've spoken about before on the podcast, friends of the podcast at Thermometer, the ring corroborated with this, and it told me that I only had 2 hours and 59 minutes sleep last night, I think, which is a recent record low, I'd say. We were getting up there. We were getting up 6 hours plus, actually, 7 hours some nights, 8 some nights, but yeah, 2 hours 59 last night. So if my episode today sounds like brain mush, I apologise, but I want you to know we're all out there going through these rough nights, especially as cold and flu season approaches. Ugh. Isn't it crazy how in this country it goes from factor 50 t-shirt weather to cold and flu season? Bam. We're in that misty autumn, starting to become winter weather mode. Coats are coming back out. And you know what? Don't get me wrong, I like cozy season. And a great benefit of cozy season is easier bedtimes because we get the darker nights. And long-time listeners will know my battles with blacking out the girls' bedroom, once taking tinfoil to task and making the house look like a drug den from the outside. And it didn't work, as the mumfluencer on TikTok professed it would in her video. It didn't work. There were still cracks. But anyway, the darker nights bring easier bedtime. I suppose we all get a bit more into a routine now. Everyone's back at school and nursery. But yeah, we do more in the summer, don't we? We do more on that well weather. But I've got a story to tell you, actually. I was sat doing a puzzle with my 4-year-old yesterday, and it's a puzzle of the world. My brother bought it for us, and I love it. It's got every country on it, and it's got different like cultural and landmark elements from each different country. And we were doing Australia at the bottom, and we were putting there was like a kangaroo and a surfer, and at the same time Bluey was on the telly. And I said to my daughter, I said, oh, this is Australia, and look, Bluey on the telly, she lives in Australia. And her little face just lit up, turned to me and said, oh wow, Mama, is Bluey in our world? And at that moment I thought, either crush her dreams and tell her no, it's just a cartoon, or tell a white lie and light her face up. And I said, oh yeah, Bluey lives in our world. And her little face just was like pure magic and wonderment. And I was like, isn't it amazing the power we have as parents to make their childhoods magical? And I think we can underestimate this. Trigger warning, if you've got older children in the vicinity, I'm going to be talking about, myths and legends, shall we say, in the next few minutes. So you may want to skip. But I was just thinking how obviously we have Father Christmas, and I know it's different all around the world, I suppose, but there are certain myths and legends that we can tell our children that make their childhoods magic. And it reminded me of when I was little. My parents were brilliant at this. And I think I must have been about 6, and I lost a tooth. And I professed to my mum that I was going to write a letter to the tooth fairy. I was going to ask her name and her phone number. And I slid this letter under my pillow, not really expecting much. And the next morning, I can still remember that feeling when I lifted up my pillow and there was a pound coin and the tiniest folded piece of paper you've ever seen with the tiniest handwriting on. And it was a letter from the Tooth Fairy telling me that her name was Mesmerise and her number was 001122334455. Still remember. And my tummy did somersaults. It's still, that feeling of magic. I still remember going downstairs and trying to dial the number on the landline and tell my mum I took the letter into school because it was back at that age when everyone still believed. And it was just magic. And I had quite a bit of correspondence with Mesmerise, the Tooth Fairy. I don't think my mum was quite expecting that. But this went on for a few nights afterwards. And actually, I told my 4-year-old this story yesterday. I told her about the time the Tooth Fairy wrote to Mummy. And 2 minutes later, bless her, she come to the bathroom with a notepad and pencil and said, "Mummy, what did you write?" I was like, oh gosh. I said, "It only works when you lose a tooth, little one. So you have to lose a tooth for the Tooth Fairy to come." So I'm already getting embroiled in my own, legends. But then another story came to mind when I was about 5 in the garden with my dad, and he'd cut all the grass. And I decided I'd take the grass cuttings and make a nest. So I made this nest just on the floor, and I went back inside, come out about half an hour later, and there were eggs in it. Oh my God. I was like, "Dad, there's a chicken's been." A chicken's been. And again, I still remember that joy and that amazement that this could happen. It felt like true magic. And I just wanted to share that with you because it made me really excited actually as they get older. They're in kind of a sweet spot now. My oldest is 5 in January. So she's, coming into that age where they understand things, but you can still keep it really magical. But yeah, isn't it great? Isn't it great being a parent? I've got a funny post for you here. I came across this on Reddit and I just thought I'd share. So it says, "What's the dumbest thing you did as a new parent because you misunderstood the rules for something?" For example, I just learned my baby can in fact spend more than 20 to 30 minutes a day in a bouncer or swing, just not more than 30 minutes at a time. So this person would avoid the bouncer like the plague and just use it for a quick second here or there because she thought it was 30 minutes total. And she put, "Learning to be a parent is humbling." This next poster has put, "When in the hospital, they told me to wake the baby every 2 hours to nurse. At first, at her first paediatric appointment, they asked how often she would wake to nurse. I confidently told them every 2 hours. Months later, they asked again and I told them the same. Cue the concern. Apparently, I was only supposed to be waking her every 2 hours until she made it back to her birth weight, which took about 3 or 4 days. I had been waking her up to nurse for months because nobody had told me to stop. Anyway, she's nearly 2 and is an awful sleeper, but it's not her fault." Oh, that is a real kicker, isn't it? Imagine, she must have had to set a timer for every 2 hours to wake a baby. Oh my Lord. Imagine thinking, wow, she's sleeping quite well here and I'm going to have to wake her. But hey ho, that's what they told me to do. Oh gosh. Next one said, "Husband read that babies like lights, so he slept with the lights on for the first 2 weeks." Oh gosh. "I gave my baby cold, tepid baths because I was terrified of getting burnt and then couldn't understand why he hated having a bath. For some reason, it took me 3 months to realise that I could put my baby in her sleep sack before she fell asleep. I would feed her, make her fall asleep, and then put her in her sleep sack, which would obviously almost always wake her up." Yeah, schoolboy error, that one. "I thought the clothes just said 3 months. I thought they were 3 to 6 months, but apparently they were up to 3 months. I had nothing for 3 to 6 months. Due to the wisdom of Instagram," oh, here we go, "I started brushing my 2-week-old's tongue. I felt awful that I hadn't been keeping her tongue clean. It wasn't until the health visitor came round and reminded me little one can't have water yet there was a heat wave in the UK, so I checked how I should brush her tongue then. She just looked at me with a mix-up of pity and kindness and said, "Please stop shoving your finger in your baby's mouth." Oh my Lord. Guys, this is why we don't use social media for advice. Okay, on to the emails. First email tonight says, "Was my postpartum check right? Hello, Charlotte. Just started listening to the pod and as a mum of an 8-week-old, and I've learnt so much, so thank you. I had my postpartum check the other day and wanted to email in to see if it was right. The check for me wasn't at all what I expected. It was all verbal. There was no check over my abdomen or the stitches for my second-degree tear. I was expecting a more physical exam. Is this right? From a first-time mum here, so not really sure." It's funny you should message this, actually, because my first exam, my first 6 to 8 week check with my eldest, so back in 2021, was physical. The doctor felt my abdomen and also checked my stitches. But with my later 2 children, the checks were both verbal. And I had put that down to maybe they just do the abdomen check with you first. But really, you would expect a physical exam. And I agree. I've come away from the last 2 appointments thinking, should I have said something? Should I have said, can you just double check everything's okay for me? And I feel like in those situations, we sometimes don't advocate for ourselves because it is a very intimate exam, isn't it? You know, you've got to get on the bed, you've got to get everything out. And it's kind of like, if the doctor's not going to ask, then I'm not going to ask. That's kind of what goes through my head, even though really, if we've got any concerns or doubts, we should just ask. So what I would say to you is, I don't know why it's changed, but it must have done if you've had the same experience. If there are any healthcare providers out there that know the reason for this or know why the 6 to 8 weeks checks aren't physical anymore, because that's my experience and this listener's experience, write in the nightviewpodcast@gmail.com and just let us know if you've got any insight on that. But what I would say to you, the listener, is if you've got any concerns or doubts, definitely book another appointment. Just say you've got a few concerns and you'd like a physical exam. And I don't really think there's anything they wouldn't refuse that, I'm sure. And it might just put your mind at rest. And it's just a reminder as well to any other brand new mums out there, if you're about to have your 6 to 8 week check and you've got any concerns about your stitches or any concerns about your abdomen or how you're feeling, please ask to get a physical exam. That's what the doctor's there to do. Maybe they're just reducing appointment times by just asking you verbally, and then if you raise a concern, they'll then check. So I would just get checked. It's always safer, isn't it? In hindsight, I feel like I should have just said, can you just double check everything's okay? But yeah, thanks for writing that in, and I hope that helps. Next email says, what's a good age gap? Hi Charlotte, I'm a mum of a 2-year-old and my husband and I are debating whether to have the next baby. I know yours are quite close together, and so I wondered what your thoughts were on the sweet spot in terms of an age gap. Keep up the pod, my nights go so much quicker listening. I'm glad to hear it. It's a hard one, the age gap. Okay, my first and second are 18 months apart. I felt okay, that transition. It was something I worried about, having 2 under 2, but it was actually fine. And I don't know if that's just because of the temperament of my children. My firstborn was very still, happy playing puzzles, happy playing cards. She was quite easy to entertain as a toddler. So having my second when she was 18 months, it worked okay. That age gap. And now as a 3 and 4-year-old, they have a lovely bond. And a great thing about it as well is that they are into the same things. They'll watch the same TV show. They'll play with the same toys. They want to do the same activities. So that's a really great benefit of having them super close. And then my son has come along. The age gap between him and my middle child is 3 years, pretty much exactly. So it's a slightly bigger age gap. But I would say it's still small enough that they'll still play together and entertain each other as they grow up. I don't know how the 3-year age gap will manifest in terms of personalities as they get bigger. Obviously, our youngest is a boy and they're girls, so there's going to be differences there. But I would say having them close together has worked for us. I'm at home with the kids, and this feels like a season when we'll have the kids close in age. And yeah, it all feels like quite close together. But saying that, my mum and dad had us quite a bit further apart. So me and my brother, there's 4 years. And then between me and my sister, there's 10, almost 11 years. And I think the benefit of that age gap is that I was able to help. I was like the other mother. So I look after my sister with my parents around. I was only 10, 11, but I would change her nappies. I loved looking after her so much. So with a bigger age gap comes the benefit of having almost like another pair of hands. And then as we've got older, my sister and I are, the age gap closes so much. Like she's 25 now, I'm 35. And although we're in different stages of our lives, we've got so much in common. We have great chats. We're there for each other like sisters are. And that age gap doesn't feel huge now. So I'm not really answering your question very well. There are pluses and minuses about having age gaps, and it depends on what your and your husband's situation is. Do you want to maybe take a career break and have your kids all close together? Or would you rather go back to work and have a bigger age gap so that the older children can kind of help raise the younger children? It's different strokes for different folks, I suppose. And another thing I would say is babies don't always come as planned. You can have a surprise, and often the surprise is a wonderful blessing, and you wouldn't change it. So it's kind of being prepared for, well, what is right for you. If you're open to a surprise, then that's fine, isn't it? But if you're like, no, I want a 4+ age gap, then that's something you have to plan for. But yeah, for my experience, having them close together as a mum is working. Even though 3 under 5 has its moments, don't get me wrong. I think you go from 2, going to 3 is like, okay, no one has free hands anymore because someone always has to have the baby. Someone always has to have the girls. So it's intense in the sense that you can't leave toddlers and babies unattended. We can't be like, oh, the girls are fine, let them play. One of us has the baby, one of us gets in the bath. It's kind of like we're always man-to-man marking right now at this age. So that's the kind of full-onness to having them close in age. But like I said, there's other benefits. The girls are growing older now, and they are playing together with very similar things, which is lovely to see. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I suppose you just have to be really, really selfish, you and your husband, and think, what do we want as a partnership? And go from there, I guess. But I mean, there's equal positives and equal negatives to having close age gaps and wide age gaps. You just have to weigh them up, I guess. I hope that helps. Next tonight is what's trending. I saw this clip from a podcast, and it was a guy telling a story he heard from Jack Black, the actor, about parenting. And what Jack Black said was, don't try to make a happy kid happier. And so he said, if a kid is playing in the mud with a stick, don't try and enhance it by bringing out extra toys and sweets and other activities and creating the fun that you think the child should be having. Just get down there with another stick. And it really hit me that. Because I think as parents, we can sometimes micromanage the fun. If my daughter is playing with a notepad and a biro and she's drawing a picture, I can very easily go and get the big pencil case out with all the colours in and the coloured paper and make it into a big craft session. That very quickly becomes something she didn't want to do in the first place, and she gets bored and she goes and does something else. So it's like, actually, when your child is doing something that may seem mundane to you, let them crack on. Let them carry on. Maybe don't even join in, because it is good for them to have independent play, isn't it? It is good to teach them that playing on their own is fine and they have to make their own fun sometimes. But if you are going to get involved on their level. Don't always feel like you have to bring extra toys, extra pens, extra paper. Just think, well, she's got a biro and a pad and she's having a great time. Maybe just bring a biro and just join in with the fun that she's having. And yeah, it ties into what that psychologist was saying last week. I was talking about how we're always optimizing for happiness, and kids need to be bored. Kids need to understand that playing with a stick in mud isn't necessarily boring. You can make fun out of that. Just because it's not a screen doesn't mean that it's not fun. And it's kind of going back to those, the good old days when kids used to climb trees, isn't it? And make fun out of sticks and make fun out of making a mud pie or whatever we did in the garden. So I just wanted to share that because I thought, in a way, we need to take the pressure off us as parents as well for constantly coming up with new ideas and new activities, because 9 times out of 10, they're happy with the pen and the pad they got out in the first place. My self-care suggestion this evening is to go on Amazon and buy yourself a bottle of Neal's Yard Remedies Geranium and Orange Foaming Bath. This is not an ad. It is pricier than my usual £3 bubble bath, but hell's bells did I feel like I'd been to a spa. I went and had a bath yesterday as I was coming down with this cold, and I poured a bit of this new bubble bath in, and oh my gosh, the whole bathroom smelled like a spa. I felt super relaxed, and it just like upped the ante in the bath. Up the ante for my usual Dove, let's just say. Go wild. Get yourself some £14 bubble bath that you won't regret. And just enjoy that bath a little bit more than you would without it. Finally, to finish on a quote I wrote. It's 3:44 a.m. She's pacing the hallway, milk-stained pyjamas, blistered nipples, tired eyes that haven't closed in days. The world is sleeping, but she's awake again, rocking, shushing, willing tiny lungs to settle. She hasn't eaten today, not properly. She's living on cold toast, tepid tea, and instincts. This is not a filtered moment. It won't end up on Instagram. There's no soft light in here, just a hallway lamp and a mother who refuses to give up. This is what love looks like. Not the kind in the movies, but the kind that shows up again and again and again, even at 3:44 a.m. Thank you for listening this evening. I hope it wasn't too much of a brain dump. I'm trying my best on this cold and 2 hours 59 of sleep. But I hope you're all keeping well, and I hope you all have a restful, relaxing night ahead. Good night.